Hey, what is going on, guys? It's DK. Back at you with another video here for a final look video of the Week 11 NFL main slate on Draftkings. Before I get into the video, if you guys are new to the channel, my name's DK. I make daily videos breaking down NBA, NFL, PGA, and esports daily fantasy sports slates. I want to thank you guys again for the continued support. It is greatly appreciated. Currently right now, 5.74 thousand subscribers, closing in on that 6K mark. So if you enjoyed the free content, please do hit that like button and subscribe if you haven't already. It really does help me out, guys. Also, if you guys cannot watch the YouTube videos, I do upload an Apple Podcast. The link is in the description below, just the DK DFS show. But with that out of the way, let's jump into the video. So, this slate, Week 11's main slate, is shaping up to be a pretty interesting one because, you know, there's no real standout game stack. I don't think there's a ton of like standout plays. Like there's a good amount of value. I think there's a lot of different ways you can go at running back. Same thing like wide receiver. So I think it makes for a pretty interesting slate. So if you just look at the odds, and we'll go over this more in the live stream on Sunday morning, but like every single game's kind of mid to high 40s. If you just look in the over-unders, like 49, 47, 49, 47.5, 46, 49.5, 45.5, 46, 48. Only game over 50 right now is Green Bay and the Colts, but that's only at 51. So, yeah, I think it makes for a pretty good slate for tournaments. So I'll do my best to break it down for you guys. Obviously, I'll talk cash plays, GPP plays, and we'll start with quarterback. And my stance has kind of stayed the same here with quarterback. There are a couple cheap options that have opened up now with some injuries, but I still feel the best with Lamar Jackson at 7-3. I know he's had a down year this year. But it's still, again, it's the rushing ability, his rushing floor, 108, 65, 58, and 55 yards on the ground. The matchup against Tennessee, Tennessee has struggled to defend the pass, so I think this is potentially a game where Lamar Jackson breaks out, and you're getting him at a pretty nice discount here at this price. So I feel really good about Lamar. I like him in both formats. I think he's one of the better plays of the slate. There's enough value for sure, especially at wide receiver. You can definitely get to Lamar Jackson. So yeah, I do like him a good amount here. He's probably my favorite quarterback play at that price. Aaron Rodgers at 7K. He is always in play in GPPs. Could you go there in cash? I mean, I think you still could do it, right? There's enough value on the slate. Again, we'll talk about a lot of value wide receivers. Clear guy you pair him with, obviously, Devontae Adams. There's the tougher matchup against the Colts. Colts have been pretty solid in both aspects, against the run and against the pass. So it's not necessarily the best matchup, but this Packers offense has kind of been matchup proof. So yeah, I think he's fine if you want to go there. If you feel really good with Aaron Rodgers. Herbert against the Jets at 6'8" it feels all right, maybe a little bit pricey. Big Ben at 6'7", it's just Pittsburgh. They are just abandoning the run. That game against Cincinnati, I still can't believe what I saw there. They were playing from a huge lead and just continuing to pass the ball through 46 times when they won 36-10. Again, they were playing from like a 2-score lead basically the whole game. So if they're just going to continue to let Big Ben air it out and throw 40-plus times no matter what happens in the game, then yeah, I think he's certainly in play. You have 3 guys you can pair him with. Now, trying to nail down which one's going to be, it's a little more tricky with Juju, Deontay, and Claypool. But the matchup is really good here against the Jags. So I'm perfectly fine with Big Ben if that's the direction you want to go. And like I said, it's good to see that Pittsburgh is just letting them air it out. We do have no Brees. We'll talk about their quarterback situation here in a sec. Deshaun Watson at 6'5", I laid out my concern. I like the price point for him and the fact that he's running more. It's just New England. I don't like seeing New England on any slate because they're just such a gross team. They're not going to pass it a bunch. They're just going to run it up the middle for like 3 yards in a cloud of dust every single play. And it just hurts everyone in the game because it's just going to slow down the game. So that is my concern here with Deshaun Watson. Not really anything to do with him. It's just the fact that it's New England, right? So I like the price point on him. I like that he's running more. I think he's definitely still in play. It's just, the fact that I just don't like playing players against New England. Bridgewater status up in the air. Originally it was doubtful. Now I guess more questionable. We'll see. If he does play against Detroit, I think he's a fine tournament play. If he misses, we could look to the standout XFL standout P.J. Walker, who won us a ton of money last year. We'll see. I would assume he would pick up a start there. Matt Ryan is always in play for GPPs. The matchup against the Saints have actually been pretty stout defensively recently, so probably wouldn't pull the trigger on him in cash, but you have Ridley back. Obviously, you have two guys, clear guys you pair him with Ridley and Julio, who have insane upside. So every single slate, no matter the matchup, Matt Ryan and both those top receivers are in play for GPPs. Cam Newton 6'2", I like the matchup for him, but like I said, it's just New England. Like if they're playing from ahead, you're going to see what you saw against when they've been playing from, like against Baltimore, 13 or 17 attempts, right? It's just not great. 15 attempts against San Francisco, 19 against Miami. So if they're playing from ahead, they are not going to air it out a lot. What you need from Cam here is, I just think if this game is going to shoot out, you need Houston to get off to an early lead. If Houston, starts this game 14-0, then I can see, this game completely blowing up and going for like 60-plus real-life points combined. Because then New England would have to air it out more. We know Houston really struggles. So, that's a concern with Cam. It's just, the game flow. If they do fall behind, though, I think Cam Newton could crush this price, but you kind of need them to be playing from behind. If they're playing from ahead or it's close, it's just going to be the run game. You could say the same thing about Kirk Cousins. He did have to air it out a bit more that game because it was close, but in the games that they're playing from ahead, 14 and 20 pass attempts. Now, the matchup is really good against Dallas. And I think Dalvin Cook is going to be, even at his price, one of the more popular plays of the slate. So one way to leverage that, once again, is, you look to Thielen, you look to Jefferson, obviously Kirk Cousins. And, both Thielen and Jefferson had a really good game in that showdown slate, right? We saw that Cook was like 80% owned, and Cousins and his pass catchers were low owned, and they were in the optimal lineup. So they can definitely pay off their salary. It's just, again, you kind of need, the Vikings to fall behind. If they're playing from ahead, we know it's going to be a heavy dose of Dalvin Cook. Tannehill, I'm going to pass against Baltimore. Stafford at 6K is like a fine price. I'm not overly excited about it. Winston, we thought he was going to start with no Drew Brees, but they said it's going to be Taysom Hill. So we'll talk about Taysom Hill in a sec. Carson Wentz is in play for tournaments at 5'7". He's very up and down. So I don't think I would go there in cash. 2 of the last 4 games has had over 30 fantasy points, but the other 2, 12 and 8. The match against Cleveland. Cleveland does struggle to defend the pass. I got to keep an eye on the weather, though. It feels like always in Cleveland. Back-to-back games, I think, has been really, really bad weather. So that's something to monitor, I guess. I haven't heard anything of bad weather, so got to cross our fingers we don't get any of that. Other options at quarterback, Philip Rivers. It's the highest over-under of the day at 51. It has had basically 20 fantasy points in 3 of the last 4 games. I don't really want to play Philip Rivers, but I could see making the argument for him against Green Bay, and again, the highest over-under. Joe Burrow 5'5", sure, if you need some salary relief, I'm okay with it, just because Cincinnati is abandoning the run. They still have no Joe Mixon, which actually I think is a plus for Joe Burrow, so they have to throw it even more. So 5.5K is a very fair price for a guy you're probably going to get about 40 pass attempts from. Other options at quarterback, you could look to the other side of Alex Smith at 5'3". They fell behind. He threw 55 times. Not really going to throw it deep, but yeah, he threw for almost 400 yards. He's had over 300 yards in back-to-back games. Has got a little bit unlucky with the touchdowns. Only 1 touchdown in the last 2 games. So yeah, I'm okay with Alex Smith if you need someone cheap. Same thing with Andy Dalton at 5'3". Are you going to feel amazing about it? No, but the matchup's really good. Again, I'm assuming he's going to start here. I think there's, you have a couple of guys you can pair him with clearly. We know Gallup's really cheap. You've looked at either Cooper or Lamb too. So he's viable. And then a couple other cheap plays I want to mention. Well, I guess, the last 2 guys, Taysom Hill, I think is going to be pretty popular. I saw on FanDuel, I don't play in FanDuel, but if FanDuel is listed as a tight end, and he's a starting quarterback, so clearly you play him there on FanDuel. Can we trust that he's going to get 100% of the quarterback snaps? They said he's going to be Sean Payton, but it's hard to trust coach speak this year. It feels like whenever a coach says something, they do the opposite. So I like the matchup. I like the price. I like the fact that Taysom Hill is clearly a running quarterback. Can we trust that he plays the entire game? I don't know, right? So it's one of those plays where I think he's going to be pretty popular. And again, I like the price. I like the matchup. I like his rushing ability. I'm not fully convinced he's going to be the only guy to play quarterback for the Saints. Like, I feel like there's still a chance Jameis gets some snaps. And if they fall behind early, maybe they just go to Jameis. So, yeah, right? There is some risk involved there. P.J. Walker, if Bridgewater's out, you could take a shot on. Again, he lit up the XFL last year. He's got rushing upside. The matchup is good here against Detroit. So, yeah, there's a lot of viable cheap plays. Now, probably Taysom Hill will be the most popular, but, you can look to, Alex Smith. You can look to Joe Burrow. We can take a shot on Wentz if you want. But for me, again, the way that I'm going, I'm probably going to play Lamar. I like the price, I like the matchup, and I think he still has upside, even though he hasn't really shown it a lot this year. So let's move on to running back. Running back has changed a bit here. We got confirmation that McCaffrey is out. Alvin Kamara with Taysom Hill at quarterback, it just makes him a little bit riskier in my opinion, because I don't think Taysom Hill is going to drop back and throw a ton, which actually lowers Kamara's floor, because the reason he racks up most of his fantasy points is through the air, right? So sure, he probably will get more carries on the ground, but I don't know if he'll get as many. He probably won't see the 8 to 9 targets a game. So that is concerning. I like the matchup. It's just like the price point with Taysom Hill at quarterback makes him a little bit riskier. Now, Dalvin Cook at 9K, I feel like you can feel pretty comfortable with him. He's probably the guy that is going to be one of the more popular plays at slate, even at this price. I think for cash games, you do probably go here because just the volume in the matchup, right? He's a guy that definitely, can go for 30-plus touches. He's gone for basically 30 touches in the last 3 games, right? So he's still a guy that will get, targeted a decent amount too. He's just their bell cow back, and Dallas really, really struggled to defend the rush, 31st against the rush. So, yeah, all this points out for Dalvin Cook to be a really solid play here, even at that elevated price point. Now, again, he's going to be popular. Definitely clearly not a must play in GPPs. And one way to leverage that ownership is you just go to the passing attack, right? You go to Thielen and Jefferson, who I think actually are pretty solid plays as well. We'll talk about wide receivers here in a bit. Derrick Henry's a stay away from me against Baltimore. Just strictly he's touchdown dependent. The matchup's not great here. I know Baltimore's probably missing a couple pieces on defense, but he's not really their bell cow anymore. Like, he's only playing at 50% of the snaps. It's just I don't really want to go there. Aaron Jones is a fine GPP play, right? He was the chalk last week. He was okay, a little bit of letdown, I guess. What you're going to get at Aaron Jones is you're going to get about 20 touches. No more than that, because they are going to utilize Jamal Williams a decent amount. It's always a tilting part with Aaron Jones. But he, like Kamara, is very, very productive with his touches. This is the highest over-under of the slate. I just think Aaron Jones kind of goes forgotten about in the slate, but kind of like him as a GPP play because I think he'll be pretty low owned. Chubb, the Cleveland backs are still a little bit too pricey for me. Chubb's at 7K. He's going to be the early down guy, while Kareem Hunt more the third down back. He did have over 100 yards last game, but again, kind of touchdown dependent with no involvement in the passing game. So not overly excited about that. Miles Sanders against Cleveland. Cleveland a little more stout against the run. I think he's probably a little bit pricey. Still playable, but not like super excited to jam him in. Mike Davis at 6'8". He was the chalk last week, got injured. Still, was all right. Put up 8 fantasy points at the flat min for running back. Now he's at 6'8", so he's going to be like probably below 5% owned. He still had upside games. We haven't seen him from it in a while, but first 3 games McCaffrey was out. He had 23, 22, and 29 fantasy points, and he will play a majority of the game. With Bridgewater's playing, that's probably a boost to him because the offense is just probably going to run a little bit better. So Davis is definitely not a cash play, but someone you can look to for GPP. So I think he'll be pretty low owned. Basically the same thing with James Conner, right? It's just Pittsburgh's abandoning the run. But are they going to continue to do that, right? We saw with Minnesota in the showdown slate, Dalvin Cook, right? He got all the ownership, and then it was the Minnesota passing attack that got there. It's kind of shaping up for the Steelers, kind of the same thing, right? I think Big Ben, not necessarily Big Ben, but more the passing attacks can be pretty popular. Again, one way to leverage that, you just go James Conner. It's discouraging that he's not getting a ton of work, but he's still their bell cow back. He plays about 90% of the snaps last game, so he's going to be out the majority of the game. The matchup is really good. We've seen upset games from James Conner, right? 23, 27, 15, 20, 50. Like, he's still a good player. It's just, maybe Pittsburgh relies on the run game a little bit more here. I think he will go overlooked in the slate. I kind of like Zeke at 6'5", too. I know the snaps are going down for him. They're getting Tony Pollard a little bit more involved. But I still expect probably around 20 touches, and Minnesota is not a defense to be scared about. And I think with Andy Dalton back, that's maybe a slight boost to his offense, even though obviously they're clearly not the same offense without Dak Prescott. But yeah, I think Zeke is, this is probably the cheapest price you will ever get Zeke. So I actually think he's a pretty decent play here in the mid-range. We do have DeAndre Swift out. We'll talk about AP. We'll talk about Carrion. They're both min-price. Viable plays. James Robinson against Pittsburgh. Yeah, the price looks okay, but I don't really want to play players against that Steelers defense. Latavius was only a guy I would look to if Kamara was out. Kamara's in, though. The Colts running backs, I don't really trust it. It was Hines at the big game last game, but they're still going to give all three work with Wilkins and Taylor as well as Hines. So hard to get super excited about that. Gibson at 5'8" against Cincinnati. The matchup is good. This is one of those situations where if you think this game is close or Washington's playing from ahead, then you probably want to look to Gibson. If you think they do fall behind, then you probably want to give J.D. McKissic a look. We're not going to continue to get about 15 targets from him a game, 14 and 15 last couple games. But like I said, it's just how you think this game flows. So if you think Washington's playing from ahead or it's close, you go Gibson. If you think they fall behind, I think J.D. McKissic's your guy. Both viable plays. I don't know if one really stands out more than the other. Again, it just depends on how you think the game works out. Other options at running back, I think Keelan Ballage at 5'6" is probably one of my favorite plays in this price range. Probably my favorite play in this price range. They said he's going to serve as the primary back. He got over 70% of the touches. Kelly snaps went way down. Pope did not play. So don't have to worry about that. It's basically going to be two running backs. We still don't have Eckler, still don't have Justin Jackson. So it's going to be Ballage for majority of the game and some Kelly. The matchup here against the Jets is good. This is a game they're probably playing from ahead. He's going to get obviously some work in the passing game. So I think Ballage is a guy that I'm looking to at this price range. Don't hate Gio with no Joe Mixon. He's not going to get a ton of carries, but he will get a good amount of targets. Yeah, I think he's playable at that price. Kind of same Duke Johnson at 5'4". He was a letdown. But if you go back and look at it, right, Duke Johnson played 95% of the snaps. He played basically the entire game. Just got a bit unlucky that it was the really, really bad wind and he did not have a catch, which is surprising for Duke Johnson. One thing I like doing is looking back on the slates is going to like fantasy labs and seeing the ownership in the high dollar tournaments. And Duke Johnson was one of the most popular plays. Guys playing what was the $3,000 entry tournament. We're all over Duke Johnson. So Duke Johnson was a good play last week. He just got a bit unlucky. I think he's once again a solid play because with no David Johnson, I expect him to play majority of the game. And he's a guy that we know throughout the years. He's a good pass-catching running back. Sure, the matchup is not necessarily the best, but there's no competition for touches right now. So I think Duke Johnson is definitely viable as well. And Hines had the big game last week. Can you expect that to continue? Probably not. Did get a little bit lucky, though, with 2 touchdowns as well. So I'll probably let others chase it. Not saying he's a bad play, but I'm not really going to go there after a big game. I kind of like buying low on guys. Ahmed with Burita coming back. Can we trust that? I don't know. Right, he did get kind of bell cow work, but that was a no without Burita. With Burita back, interesting to see. So I still think Ahmed's viable, but a little bit more risky now with Matt Burita available. Other options at running back. So basically now I just want to talk about the Detroit running backs. I guess then we can move on to wide receiver. So no Swift. It's AP. It's Kerryon Johnson. I expect AP to be the starter. Was told to prepare for a starting role. He's a guy that, at this price, you don't need a lot from him. I still expect Kerryon Johnson to get some touches too. So, yeah, AP, playable. Does he really have slate-breaking upside? Probably not. But at this price, you don't need a ton from him. So, yeah, I think you could look to AP for salary relief. But you're not going to feel like amazing about it. Let's move on to wide receiver. So, wide receiver, yeah, there's no real clear-cut play, in my opinion. So I think it makes for a pretty nice slate, like Devontae Adams at 8'6". Just a guy that has absolutely enormous upside. Even in a bad matchup, him and RODGERS are going to play every single week. I like that pairing every single time in GPPs. The same thing I'll say with Julio and Calvin Ridley, right? 7 and 7.5K look pretty good for these guys that have enormous upside. So, yeah, both are viable plays for GPPs. Keenan Allen at 7.4, I like for cash. I guess the one concern is, can the Jets score enough points to really make the Chargers have to air it out a bit? Worries me a bit, but he's still a guy that we expect probably double-digit targets from. So, yeah, I think Keenan Allen's a fine play. Michael Thomas with Taysom Hill at quarterback does make him a lot riskier. I like the matchup here, but do you trust Taysom Hill? If you're one of those guys that, really feels confident in Taysom Hill and his ability, then yeah, you can look to Michael Thomas. He will go overlooked in the slate. The price does look good. The matchup's good. It's just, again, it makes it riskier playing with Hill at quarterback. I would feel a lot more comfortable getting to a guy like Michael Thomas if Winston was quarterback, just because he's just a better passer, right? Other options at wide receiver, McLaurin, I like him at 6'9". He's just a guy that, we expect probably about 10 targets from a game. The matchup is really good here against Cincinnati. He just has huge upside and a really high floor right now. So, yeah, I do like Terry McLaurin a good amount there at that price. I like all the Pittsburgh receivers here in the mid-range with Juju, with Claypool, with Deontay Johnson. Pittsburgh has been passing it a ton. If you're going to make me pick, I'll just pick the cheapest of the bunch with Deontay. He probably will be the most popular. But, yeah, all three definitely viable here with Juju, Claypool, and Deontay Johnson. The Minnesota passing attack, right, with Thielen and Justin Jefferson, both had pretty solid weeks last week. Thielen had 2 touchdowns. Jefferson had over 100 yards. Both these guys have upside in a really good matchup against Dallas. And I don't know if they're going to be super, super popular, because I think Dalvin Cook is going to be one of the chalkiest plays of the slate. But yeah, one way, again, to get off that ownership is you just go to the passing attack with Jefferson or Thielen. Both viable. Both are going to play a majority of the game in a good matchup. I like them as pretty nice plays here in the mid-range. If we go below this, the Cincinnati receivers with Higgins and with Boyd, I think are both pretty solid plays. If you're going to make me pick, I'll go Boyd out of the slot. Just a guy that's getting about 8 to 9 targets a game. And like I said, we just know Cincinnati is going to throw the ball a ton. So I think both Cincinnati receivers are viable. We'll talk about AJ Green, who probably not a cash game cheap play, but someone you could look to in tournaments. He's been super up and down, but he's at a playable enough price point. Other wide receivers, Marvin Jones Jr. at 5'5". We have no Galladay. We have no Danny Amendola. He's going to be the clear guy. He had a nice week last week, 8 catches on 10 targets for almost 100 yards and a touchdown. So I think he's a perfectly fine play in the mid-range. Definitely someone I'm looking to around the mid-5K range. Jacoby Myers, he's the guy for New England, right? He's the guy who's getting targeted a ton, even though they're not throwing it a bunch. He's just getting all the targets, 10, 14, and 7. The matchup's really good. Again, I think he could break the slate if New England falls behind early in this one. So, like his upside a good amount. Curtis Samuel at 4.7 with no Christian McCaffrey. He's a guy you can expect probably a couple carries from. The matchup here against Detroit is pretty good. I would feel a little bit more comfortable with him if Bridgewater's the quarterback. But definitely someone you can look to for some salary relief. I think all 3 of the Colts receivers are viable, but good luck trying to nail down which one's going to be with Pittman, with Pascal, with T.Y. Hilton. If you're going to make me pick, I'll go T.Y., but hard to really, again, figure out which one's going to be that's the big game. But again, that is the highest over under the slate. Green Bay has not been amazing defensively, so all the cheap Colts receivers are definitely viable. And then below 4K, there's actually a good amount of plays here. Marvin Hall, no Amendola, no Galladay. He's a guy that should play majority of the game. I think he's someone you could definitely look to. I don't think he's going to be super popular. I feel pretty good about a guy like Michael Gallup at 3.7. Another guy that's going to play majority of the game in a good matchup. Dallas probably will be playing from behind this one. 12 and 7 targets in back-to-back games is good to see. So he's the cheapest of the bunch for Dallas. You could look to, I guess I didn't talk about the other Dallas receivers. I think they're all in play here. Again, I assume Andy Dalton will be the quarterback with Cooper Lamb. It's just, the price point with Gallup. That's why I think he stands out as probably the best play, just a price point thing. KJ Hamler, I've talked about him as value the last couple slates. I'll talk about him again for value. I know Denver quarterback situation is shaky, but he's playing outside. He's playing majority of the game. 10 targets in back-to-back games. I think he's perfectly fine even in a tougher spot against Miami. Other options like AJ Green, I wouldn't go there in cash games because he's very up and down. Look at the last 4 games, 17, 15, 3, and 0, a donut. But he's still playing majority of the game. So can you look to AJ Green? Sure, you can. Not a lot of people are going to go there. but I think he still has some upside. Can't trust in cash, though. Jakeem Grant's another guy I think is viable here. He's going to be the number 2 here for the Dolphins at wide receiver. Back-to-back games of 5 targets. He's a speedster. He does have some upside. Like, he can definitely break a long one, so he possesses that upside at a cheap enough price point. I think you can give Jakeem Grant a look. Definitely someone look into for value once again. And then Denzel Mims at 3-3. That's just too cheap for him. He's a guy that has upside. I know the Jets quarterbacks, it's hard to feel great about it, but he's going to play majority of the game. He had 8 targets last game. 3.3K is too cheap. So Mims, definitely someone looking to for value. And then, that probably wraps it up. I guess I'll mention one more Detroit guy since Amendola is out too. You could look to Cephas. Like, no one's going to play him. He's at the flat min price. I expect him to be the number 3 guy. I'm probably not going to go there with confidence, but, week 1, he did have 3 catches and 10 targets. But yeah, I think that really wraps up for wide receivers. So let's finish up with tight end today. Again, Mark Andrews is viable here at 4.9. If I'm going to pair someone with Lamar Jackson, it's going to be Mark Andrews. I don't think you have to pair someone with Lamar, though. Like, I'm perfectly fine running a naked Lamar. Like, that's the build I have right now, is just a naked Lamar Jackson. But if I was going to pair someone, it would be Mark Andrews. No Nick Boyle. Maybe he plays a little bit more at tight end. He's a guy that can look to in the red zone. Again, the matchup's good here. So, like the upside there for Mark Andrews. Tight ends, kind of shaky this week once again. Hunter Henry's always in play at 4.6. He's a guy, averaging about 6-7 targets a game. Hayden Hurst, the same thing. He's been really safe. Sure, Ridley coming back maybe hurts him a little bit, but he's still running a ton of routes, still getting targeted a good amount. I'm fine with Hurst as well. Cheaper options at tight end, Hawkinson with no Amendola and no Galladay. I actually think makes her a pretty decent play here at 4.2. Finally got that price decrease. He was a little bit pricey all year, in the 5K range. 4.2 is definitely more playable. So the Hawkinson I'm looking to as a cheaper option. I like Dallas Goedert too. Played a majority of the game. Still no Zach Ertz. Again, we know Cleveland struggles to defend the pass, so I think Goddard is someone you could look to as a value tight end. I'm fine with Schultz too against Minnesota at 3.6. Logan Thomas I think is going to be pretty popular at 3.3. He's playing the entire game, running a ton of routes. Cincinnati struggles defensively, so yeah, I'm fine playing Logan Thomas. I've talked about his value tight end basically every single week. I think he's once again playable. Other options at tight end, that's probably the extent I would go. I don't really know if I'm considering anyone else. So, yeah, there's no real standout tight end, right? I think Andrews at the top probably has the most upside. Again, he's the guy I would pair with Lamar Jackson if you're going to make me pick someone to pair him with. But I think there's other options you can go with. You can go to Hurst, who's running a good amount of routes. You can look to Hawkinson with some injuries there for Detroit. I think you can look at Goddard with no Zach Ertz in a good matchup. I think Schultz is still fine at 3.6. And then Logan Thomas basically playing the entire game and, again, running a ton of routes. So that's kind of where my interest lies for tight end. As far as defense goes, there's no real standout defense. Again, usually my strategy here is pick a cheap defense and hope they don't kill me, just because defense is such a high variance position. I don't think it's really worth it to spend up on defense. Obviously, you're going to feel good about the Steelers, playing against the Jags, the back quarterback, but 4.6K kind of feels like a lot to pay for a defense. Cheaper defenses you can look to, I don't hate 2K Jets defense, right? You don't need a lot from them. Bengals defense going up against Alex Smith, I think is viable. The Falcons defense going up against Taysom Hill, definitely not the same offense with Hill running the show. So yeah, I'm okay with the Falcons. You could look to Lions even if Bridgewater's out. Washington I think looks pretty good at 2.9. Cincinnati's really been throwing the ball a ton, so that's, more opportunities for interceptions and sacks. I think Washington looks like a pretty decent play there in the mid-range as far as defenses go. But yeah, that's really it. And we'll talk about defenses more in the live stream. But I think that's going to wrap it up for the video today, guys. So if you have been enjoying the content so far, I'd really appreciate it. You can leave a like button on the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and hit the notification bell so you don't upload videos and don't go live. We've got a lot of exciting stuff coming up, guys. Obviously, continuing to have NFL content for you every single day. We have NBA right around the corner, preseason starting in about 3 weeks, free agency going on right now. So excited for NBA. But yeah, that wraps it up. So I will see you guys all in the live stream Sunday morning. Make sure to check it out 1 hour before lock. Hope you guys all have a good day, and I will see you Sunday in the live stream.